son of a bitch.
Groovy.
Hey everybody, this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, the 2017 Star Wars film that I'm going to be right up front with you and tell you that I enjoyed an awful lot. I thought this movie was very unexpected. It did not go down the route that I thought it would. I was expecting this movie to basically be another retread of The Empire Strikes Back, the same way The Force Awakens was with A New Hope, and I did not think that that was the case whatsoever. I mean, they ratcheted up the tension a great deal, just like The Empire Strikes Back did, and there's definitely some through lines from the previous films. I mean, there's the training montages and that kind of thing. This is a Star Wars movie. It doesn't feel like it, all of a sudden it's 180 by its twisted imagination, but it's also its own thing. They took some chances with it. I think it's probably the best Star Wars movie since The Empire Strikes Back, and I really enjoyed The Force Awakens and Rogue One a great deal, but I think this was much more interesting. They took a lot more chances, and they just went down avenues that I was not expecting. I will say, if I'm talking about the plot of the movie, there was a couple characters that I felt like did things that weren't necessarily within the character that I knew going into this movie, but at the same time, those characters had been through things that had just completely changed who they were, and they just altered their perspective on themselves, on the world, on what to do. So it felt earned. And I mean, right off the hop, the character that comes to mind when I say didn't necessarily act in any way that I had known him to in the past was Luke Skywalker. But again, I feel like that was earned. I am going to do my very best to not give any major spoilers on this film, because I want people who haven't seen the movie to be able to go check it out, and people who have to kind of have a bit of an idea of what I'm talking about. But I mean, right off with Luke, I mean, if you've seen the trailers for this movie, you know he doesn't necessarily embrace the idea of training Rey to be a Jedi. So I knew that going in, but where he ends up going through in the movie, what he ends up doing, is not what I was expecting whatsoever. But at the same time, I thought there was a lot of very satisfying moments with him, which were a lot of fun. So I enjoyed what they did with his character, and I thought his interactions with Rey were all well done. The relationship that they set up with them was great, and I did enjoy the fact that, like The Empire Strikes Back, this movie is kind of segmented, where they have all these various things happening. Like in the Force Awakens and A New Hope, there's this group that kind of comes together and goes on an adventure together, whereas in this they kind of do their own things and then end up coming back together. And just like in The Empire Strikes Back, I thought that was handled extremely well. They didn't take too long in any given storyline, so that when you jump back into a different story, you felt like you were kind of rejoining something that you had let go. But at the same time, they weren't rushing any of the sequences either. There were extended scenes that played out, so it was kind of the best of both worlds, where you had the ability to have some character moments in there, which was definitely cool. And that definitely applies to the relationship of Rey and Luke. I mean, I thought that all of their moments were all about growth for their characters and kind of understanding who they were at this point and who they might become, and I thought that was all well handled. And there was a moment of a revelation that comes across, and that it was not at all what I was expecting. And then the way that they kind of showed that from two different perspectives, I thought that was all very, very cool, very well written, and just great. And I liked the fact that you had this kind of relationship with Rey and Luke, but also Rey had a number of other relationships. I mean, they kept bringing up the fact that both Finn and Rey were trying to get back to one another, but at the same time, I mean, it felt like that relationship wasn't as paramount to her as that with Luke, who she saw as a potential mentor, as a potential father figure, and which made all the sense in the world with the way that her character had been set up in the previous film, where she was trying to look and hope to reunite with her parents, but at the same time also with Ben, with Kylo Ren, with another person that she felt might be in kind of a little bit of a similar situation to her. And the way in which they connected, I thought was great. And I think that Kylo Ren absolutely is my favorite character in this movie by far. It's definitely definitely my favorite character in both this, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and I'd be hard pressed to name a Star Wars character in general that I like more than Kylo Ren. I think he's just such a well written character, and I like the fact that he has these fits of rage and all that, which is something you never saw in the previous films. I mean, in the previous movies, all these Jedi's are very controlled and all that, but at the same time, you have Kylo who enters the fray, and he's very much all in, and he's very passionate, and he's trying to hold that at bay, as well as the inkling that he wants to do good things as well. He's a character that's basically at battle with himself. He kind of reminds me a little bit of the Hulk, but at the same time, but it's just so well handled. My one problem with Kylo, it gets brought up in this movie, got brought up in The Force Awakens. They keep bringing up the Knights of Ren. I want to see the Knights of Ren. Show me the Knights of Ren, other than just like a simple flashback. I want to see them. But then Snoke's in this movie, which you saw the hologram of him in the previous movie, but actually seeing the character in this, Snoke was awesome. I'm not gonna go to too much more than that because, again, I don't want to go into spoiler realms by any stretch, but I thought that he was very, very cool. And General Hux was back. I love the idea of General Hux, just like the same reason why I like Director Krennic, this kind of idea of the middle management of the First Order or the Empire. I think is very interesting to contemplate, and the fact that he's very power hungry, but at the same time kind of a bit of a coward, and they refer to him as Kerr. I mean, I thought it was great. Poe is back, and they gave him a great deal more to do in this movie, which I thought was a very positive thing. I really like Oscar Isaac's a lot as an actor, and I felt like in The Force Awakens he was by and large misused and just they didn't do nearly enough with him. He was a character that I didn't understand why people were interested in, because other than the fact that he's obviously a very, very handsome dude, he just really didn't do much of anything. And I loved his relationship with Leia in this movie, and just Leia in general. I mean, she just so great. It's so sad to think that we'll never see her on film again because of the untimely passing of Carrie Fisher, and so that's just so disappointing because she just was so magnificent in this movie. I just love the character and the way that they wrote her, where she'd become this kind of fountain of wisdom and knowledge, and that she was really truly this fantastic general of the rebellion, and you really felt like the tension and the fear at the idea of her ever being in any kind of jeopardy, and just the way her character was written. I mean, you 100% understand why she would be able to bring people to her, and I love the way that like her character's lines. I mean, she didn't say too much or too little. I mean, she got her point across, but she wasn't also monologuing by any stretch of the imagination, more like Snoke was, which I thought was perfectly fitting, because Snoke is he's much more about like the ego and all that stuff, whereas Leia's just trying to do what's right, and I just love that. And there's another female character in this movie that I felt disappointed in, though. This Maz Kanata does make an appearance in this movie, but I really want to see more of her in both The Force Awakens and in this. They really didn't give her a whole lot to do, which was disappointing, because she seems like a very, very intriguing character, which would be cool. And I will say this, there was a character in The Force Awakens that another female character that I felt like really got short shrift, which was Captain Phasma, and it was cool to see her kind of get a little bit more to do in this movie. I mean, again, she wasn't a gigantic part of the film by any stretch of the imagination, but what they did have her do was pretty cool. And then, I mean, of course, you can't talk about this movie without talking about the whole Finn aspect of this movie, and the fact that they introduced the character of Rose through him, and the interactions between them I thought was absolutely fantastic. I really, really enjoyed the dynamic and the way they set up how she kind of saw him as somebody to worship at the beginning, and then as the film progresses, where she kind of sees him as an actual human being, and then just the way they built, I thought that was fantastic, and I really, really like to see more of them. And she is not the only new character in this movie, and Laura Linney is in it. Laura Dern is in it as the new leader of one of the new leaders of the rebellion, a character that you get introduced to, and she's kind of somebody who works alongside Leia, and I thought her character was interesting. I'd say of the three major new characters, she was my least favorite. She was very stoic and didn't say a lot. I think it was a very well written character, because there has always been a bit of part of me that when you have these characters going up to the leader of the rebellion, being like, "Rrr," and they're kind of reacting. It seems maybe not too realistic, because I think in reality, if you're leading this great battle, you're maybe not going to be wasting your time having these lengthy discussions with the people that you might see as lesser people, and even though they've played a role in the past. And so the way that she kind of dealt with that, I thought was well done, and the way in which you end up finding out, you know, who she is as a person, and whether or not she is, somebody who deserves to be in her position. I thought all that was well handled. And Benicio del Toro is in this movie, and he's fantastic. I loved his character. I thought he was fascinating, and just very, very cool. And I mean, he's Benicio del Toro. What more can I say? I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I mean, they really, with the exception of a few characters that I thought maybe weren't given enough to do, there really wasn't a character whose storyline that I wasn't interested in, and who didn't go up to places that I found fascinating. And again, like I said, Kylo is absolutely my favorite character in this movie, and I love how they handled him, and the way they set up the relationship with him and Rey going forward, and I mean, there's a lot in this movie. It was great in another way too, because I really enjoyed the fact that this is episode 8 and we know episode 9 is coming, but this did not feel like episode 8 leading into episode 9. At the end of the movie, you know, you have a good idea of what episode 9 is going to be about, but this movie had what felt like a complete story to me. There was things left open that I'm very interested to see in the next movie, but it was its own thing. It introduced a number of concepts and kind of paid them off at the end, which is something I was very, very, very happy to see. I enjoyed this movie a great deal. Overall, if I was going to give it a score out of 10, for me personally, I'd give it a solid 9. I just loved it, and I've seen out there that there are a number of people who do not agree with that position. There was a lot of people who were not fans of it, and you know, that's completely understandable. I mean, all of us have a relationship with these movies and really care, and if you're going into it expecting one thing and you get something else, or you just felt like characters were wrong or whatever, you know, that's completely understandable, and I'm not saying you're wrong by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying, for me, it was fantastic. So those are my thoughts on The Last Jedi. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. If you hated it, I would love to talk to you about it and find out what about it was so off for you, and maybe explain more my position based off of referencing yours. And that would be absolutely fun for me, because I love talking to people about movies. And speaking of which, if you are somebody who is watching this video, please, please, please hit that like button, hit that share button, because it'll make it much more likely that other people will discover this video exists, come and check it out, and give me their thoughts, so we can have that back and forth, which would be awesome. And speaking of which, if you are one of those people who are new here, or you just haven't done it yet, please hit that like, or hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you can find out when I put out a new video and come and check it out. Aside from all that though, have yourself a good day.